Hello and welcome back to Moms on a Mission. Today's episode, I am going to be talking about play and even how play can relate to anxiety and even depression. I am your host, Julie Hatch, and I'm really glad that you are here today to listen to this episode. So I will just get started. Play, as many of you may know, is the way that children learn. Kids learn through play. And you could even go so far as to say that play is their work. And it is just as important to them as our work is to us. Play is their work. It is their job in life to play because that's how they learn all kinds of things, numbers and letters and interpersonal relationships and how the world works. Play is how they learn everything about life. So play is really important, which is why I'm talking about it today. Now, there are two kinds of play that I'm going to talk about today. There is structured and there is unstructured. And believe it or not, play can relate to a child's levels of anxiety as they grow up, as they grow older, and even depression. And I'll get into that a little bit into this. So first, we'll talk about structured play. And structured play is play with structure, where you give the child, and this all depends on the ages, but say we're talking about toddlers and preschoolers and maybe even young elementary school kids. We give them things to play with and say, here, this is what you do with this. This is how you play with this, and go and have some fun. For instance, even little kids, like toddlers, that are learning to put shaped plastic blocks into the hole. Like you have the circle match up with the circle hole and the square match up with the square hole. That's structured play. Kids love it. They absolutely love it. And it gives them a sense of accomplishment when they get it right, but that's structured play. Or those rubber rings where you stack from biggest to smallest, or you put things in order of color. As they get older, sometimes they have toys that help with their vocabulary or help with them learning their numbers. And that's a form of play. It's a structured form of play, and it's kind of a teaching way of play, again, which is fine. It's a fun way for them to learn, but it's not completely play. There is a point to it, and we are trying to kind of train their brain through that kind of a play, kind of structured play. We train their brain because we're trying to teach them. Now, to take take an example, which is taking this a little bit to the extreme, but maybe 2 years ago, I heard on NPR an interview, or no, whatever. I read an article or heard an NPR interview about a preschool in a very elite, well-to-do suburb of Boston on the North Shore, where there is a waiting list to get into the preschool. And I mean preschool, like 2 and 3 years old and 4 years old. And there's a wait list, and parents who are not even pregnant yet will put themselves on the wait list. It is such a desirable preschool to get into. And the reason it's so desirable for this elite, well-to-do population is that they have their kids, they teach numbers and writing way before is developmentally appropriate. They push them to learn this stuff. They have them dress up, these little kids, these little 3 and 4 year olds. They have them dress up in lab coats. Dressing up in costumes is one thing, but they have them dress up in lab coats to pretend that they're scientists or mathematicians, and they play. That's a form of play, but they're being directed to being a scientist or a mathematician, and they are being really pressured to learn their numbers and letters before really should be done. And so what this does, and why these parents do this, is because they want their child to get a boost up in getting ahead in the competitive academic world that most kids find themselves in. So they go to this preschool so they can then get into a really good private school. So that then they can get into a really good college. So that then they can really get into have a really good job. And that's all fine and good except for the anxiety that invokes, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. So the point is that structured play, while yes, it can train the brain and help them develop and learn, can be overboard. And it really needs to be very well balanced with unstructured play. Unstructured play is when you give the child a pile of blocks and you just say, do what you want with them. Build what you want, line them up, do whatever you want with them. And it's directed by the child. It's child-directed play. Or give them a pile of Legos, not with any directions or an image that they're supposed to be trying to copy and create. Just a pile of Legos, make whatever you want. That's unstructured play. Playground settings are often unstructured play. The beach or the woods is a beautiful natural playground with all unstructured play. As kids get older, they'll say that they're bored. They don't know what to do because they don't know what to do with nothing structured around them. And so that can be a little bit uncomfortable, but eventually they figure out what to do. And so unstructured play contributes greatly to creativity and thinking outside the box, something that I think that we could use a little more help in, a little creativity in our growing up kids. Young kids, think of a 2-year-old at Christmas time. What do they like? They like the wrapping paper and the boxes that everything came in. They don't really care so much about the toys, or they care about them for a minute, maybe half a day, not even. But it's the wrapping paper and it's the boxes that they can just sort of do what they want with, what pleases them, the sounds and the textures and climbing in and out of the boxes. That kind of unstructured gifts or play. Baseball, basketball, organized sports. They are a great way to get kids outside and exercising and running around, absolutely, and learning teamwork, very good. But it's not the same as unstructured, a pickup game of basketball in the playground when a couple of kids show up and they all just start shooting the hoop. Or you give a kid a ball and see what they're going to do with it. Yes, they could be have a bat and a ball and try to run the bases and be playing baseball, which is structured. Or you just give them a bat and say, go and hit some rocks into the woods with it, or kick a ball around. Whatever it may be, I hope you're getting the idea of what the difference is between structured and unstructured. So back to the structured and how it, I believe, contributes to anxiety. So back to this preschool that, while they're still in the womb, are being pre-programmed basically to excel in academics and get into a good college and get a good job, which is fine if that's what the child wants to do. If the child is naturally an academic kind of a person, and I've talked about that depending on their element type. Some kids are made to go to Ivy Leagues and hold really great jobs, but a lot of them aren't, and that's fine. And so if we can take let the reins go a little bit and let them figure out what works for them, what they enjoy, then I think that does the world a whole lot of good, and it's much better for the kid, for them to be able to figure out what they want to do, poke around, be curious, try this, try that, rather than being directed and programmed, basically. So back to the whole anxiety thing. So I think about a year ago, after or in the midst of COVID, there was the state of Colorado declared a pediatric state of emergency, mental health emergency. And that's because of the rates of anxiety and depression were crazy high. And it's just Colorado that declared an emergency. I think that it's a state of emergency in many states. Kids are growing up, the statistics show it, that kids there's still rising rates of anxiety and depression. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, it doesn't matter. COVID probably contributed to it. But with an interview, when this news reporter interviewed them and asked them, why these, how do you guys feel? Why this anxiety and depression? And they cited several things, but the overarching theme was that they feel pressure. They feel pressure from their parents, from their teachers for doing well academically, and to such an extent that it's taking its toll on them. They feel social pressure also, but the academic pressure all around them is just making them crazy. And that's that's a real statement, and that is, those are from the mouths of teenagers in Colorado where it says state of emergency. So the pressure that's created from day one for preschools that are teaching them their alphabet before they're even 1 year old, all the way up to teenagers, the anxiety, the pressures is what's creating a lot of anxiety, and it's really taking its toll on the mental health of our youth. And I think it's a big problem. So ways that we can fix that or counteract that is unstructured play. Less control, less intervening in what our kids are doing for play. And again, this is all varies with ages. But when parents get way involved and dictate what their kids should be doing for play, it's not really play, and it's not the child's choice, and it doesn't necessarily help. Which brings me to another story. Back in 2015, on a headline on the Washington Post, declared this woman from New York City, I don't remember her name, I did say her name, but I don't remember it, as America's worst mom. And the reason that she was called America's worst mom is because she allowed her 9-year-old son to start off someplace in New York City and find his own way home without her. He wanted to. He was begging, "Please, Mom, let me do this. I know I can find my way home." So she gave him, what he needed. This is, I don't know whether he had a cell phone or change to use a payphone, money to get a taxi if he needed to, a map of the subway system, the bus system, which he already knew because he lived for 9 years in New York City and his mother had shown him around quite well. But she gave him everything that he would need to be able to get home if he couldn't do it himself. But he did, and he did it exactly in the amount of time he expected. His parents were at home waiting for him, and in he walked through the door, and it was a wonderful thing. The kid felt so good. He felt so empowered that he could get himself home anywhere in New York City. And this is a 9-year-old. And not all 9-year-olds are equipped to do that, probably. But this kid was, and the mom knew it. So she allowed him to do this. And for that, she was called the America's worst mom, because she let him find his way home in New York City. And I think that all of us moms know our kids better than anybody else and would know whether your 9-year-old is capable of doing that or not. And a lot of moms would probably say, "No way would I let my 9-year-old do all that by themselves." But this woman then went on to start a whole movement of free range play, a free range movement for kids, letting them have a little bit or a lot more freedom with less control and hovering and intervening from parents. I think that a lot of parents think that the child could have been hurt or abducted or, safety's sake. But really, it's not about safety. It's really about fear. It's about our fear of something happening to our kids, which is, reasonable. But a lot of times it's unreasonable fear. And from a book that I'd read called The Coddling of America, which is a great book, talking in part about how parents are over-controlling and over-involved and really overprotecting our kids. And they gave these numbers about safety of kids being abducted. And the numbers say that 90% of the kids who go missing because there was miscommunication between parent and child, or misdirection. They got the directions wrong, so it was accidental, and it was miscommunication. Or a teenager runs away. Those are 90% of the kids that go missing. That's why. And it's not go missing. It's just that they didn't get home on time, or they miscommunicated and then got home a little bit later. 99.8% of the time those kids are, so-called go missing, they come home. 99% of the time they come home. Most of the time, if they are taken by a biologic parent. So the bottom line is a tiny fraction of 1% of kids who are abducted by a small fraction of 1% of kids who go missing are abducted by a stranger. Tiny amount. And those are the ones that make the news. So we hear that and we think, oh my God, we got to protect our kids. again, understandably so, but really not founded in the numbers. And part of the point of this, what these authors said, and which I completely agree with, is that we're doing more damage by overprotecting our kids than that we're doing more damage by overprotecting than if we just let them go and have some freedom. Again, you know what kind of freedom is appropriate for your child, but try to just loosen up a little bit on the control and teach them what they need to know, and give them a little bit more free reign. What else was I going to say about that? So, anxiety. So when parents are really, okay, so for one thing, anxiety comes from the pressure that we put on our kids academically for success, getting ahead, doing better, being smarter, again, getting ahead, doing better than the next guy. That kind of pressure is making our kids really anxious. But also, as far as free range play, if we are anxious about our kids, we say, oh, you shouldn't, I'm not going to let you walk to the store. I'm not going to let you walk to your friend's house, when really it's an appropriate thing to do. That if your child feels you're worried about them and anxious about them, they're going to absorb that and they're going to feel anxious. They pick up on our anxiety. So the more that we can be a little more relaxed, to the point where our anxiety, we're not feeling so anxious, and we don't exhibit the anxiety to our kids, then the better off that they will be. The less anxious they will be. So it pays. I really believe that it pays to be hands off. So free range, hands off, that is appropriate. Give them some free reign. Let them decide what is good for them. That's another thing, is that when kids are doing free range play, they are able to figure out what is too dangerous for them and what is not too dangerous for them. And what we may think is too dangerous for them, they have a very good sense, and I'm talking about all ages, they have a good sense about what they can handle. What is good fear? Sometimes there's a good fear, excitement, like climbing up a tree, and that kind of excitement, kind of fear is really good. It's good for a child to feel. It's good for a person to feel. The overwhelming fear that paralyzes you and makes you want to cry, that's not good fear. But kids are really good at self-regulating that if we just let them do it. Now, the benefits of free-range play is that, the definition of free-range play, which I think is important to know, is it is free play, a free play activity freely chosen and directed by the kids and undertaken for its own sake, just to have fun, with no direction, no purpose, and no end product for it. It is intrinsically fulfilling to them to be able to create their own play the way that they want to, and it's enjoyable just for the enjoyment of it. Personally, I think adults should do more free play too. Just playing for the enjoyment of it is, I think that we've lost sight of that a lot with our kids. Just to let them have fun for the sake of having fun with no purpose to it. It's not organized, such as organized sports, and it is not led by an adult. And an adult doesn't intervene. Yes, an adult can supervise in case things get really way out of hand, but even so, kids learn to resolve conflict amongst themselves if parents just stand back and wait and see what happens. I think parents only need to intervene when there is imminent, serious physical danger, potential harm. Otherwise, there needs to be times that they have play where it's just them, just the kids, without adults intervening. It builds kids' confidence, their feelings of responsibility, and they learn to resolve conflict with each other really, really well without the intervention of a parent or an adult. And they do other problem solving. They problem solve through all of this with no adult intervention. So play is really important for kids. Unstructured play is really important for kids. A balance between structured, where you're trying to accomplish something, teach them something, move them ahead in some way, whether it's the kind of toys that they play with or the sports that they are, or extracurricular activities that they are involved in. That's structured and that's all fine and good, but we really need to remember the importance of unstructured play, giving them free rein, let them walk somewhere alone or with a friend. Just give them a little bit more freedom, because it does a lot of good, like I say, for their confidence, for their ability to resolve conflict with other kids. It's only beneficial to them. And so that is about it for what I have to say about play. Unstructured play helps with, I don't know if I want to say preventing, but minimizing anxiety. Structured play, or academic structure, can lead to a lot of anxiety in kids. So we don't want more anxious kids. We need fewer anxious kids, because it's really a problem. So give them some unstructured play. And in another episode or two, I'm going to be interviewing with a woman from Australia who, her profession is about play. Her whole job and her whole life is about kids and play. So it's uplifting and fun. So I will see you then when I am talking with her. And in the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. Subscribe, write a comment, click a thumbs up, or whatever you want to reply to, however you want to reply. And this is Julie Hatch with Moms on a Mission. I'll see you next time.